Tonight on PM Express, we'll engage the Convention People's Party, CPP, the People's National Convention, PNC, and the ruling party, NDC, on their campaigns so far. Are the messages coming out clearly enough to help the electorate make up their minds? Is the ruling party too drawn into attacking the promises of the NPP rather than touting its own programs? Well, you can join us by text 1760. Post your comments, suggestions, and questions on our Facebook wall. Gentlemen, welcome. Tonight I have in the studio Ni Ama Akomfra, who is Communications Director of the CPP. And then next to him, I have Bernard Mona, who is General Secretary of the PNC. And then I have Felix Ofosu-Kwachi, member of the NDC Communications team. Gentlemen, welcome to PM Express.
Stephen, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Let me start with you, Felix. I want to start with you because you have the extra challenge of being in government and then also mount a campaign to win back power if you are able to. How would you say your campaign is going so far?
Well, good evening, Stephen, and good evening to your cherished viewers. I'm sure viewers and indeed the entirety of the Ghanaian population understands that we have had to kick off slightly late because of the unprecedented tragedy that befell all of us in late July. Certainly it was necessary to ensure that the necessary funeral and burial rites were undertaken, following which customarily the president had to go around to thank those who mourned with us when we lost Professor John Evans Atta Mills. So necessarily our campaign had to delay. It has taken off. Indeed, in Kumasi, right after President Mahama received overwhelming endorsement from the delegates of the NDC, he launched a campaign. Since then, there has been no turning back. The president has been on a number of campaign tours where he has clearly articulated exactly what it is that the NDC has done with the mandate that it was bestowed, that was bestowed upon it in 2008, and what it intends to do going forward. Our manifesto is actually ready. In the coming days, there will be announcements as to when it will be launched. And when that is done, perhaps it will provide enough basis for a thorough assessment of exactly what it is that the NDC has to offer the electorate. But largely, we are going to vigorously articulate the numerous achievements that we've chalked over the last 3.5 years. The fact that we have managed to turn an economy that was in dire straits into one that is buoyant, into one that is acknowledged globally as having performed best in terms of the growth rates. We have stabilized what was an unstable situation. Of course, it is true that we've had some challenges along the line, like the situation with the city. But even then, market watchers and analysts, and indeed the Ghanaian public, would bear me out that over the last month or so, there has been significant improvement in the performance of the city. If you go into the area of education, we have consistently made the point that it is necessary to give access to all those who need to have formal education, from the primary to the secondary to the tertiary levels. We have undertaken massive work that has opened up access to people who hitherto did not have opportunity to attend school. I mean, close to 200,000 pupils at the basic level, for instance, have been moved from situations where they were sitting under trees and attending classes into modern classroom blocks that has enhanced the quality of education. If you go to the secondary school, for instance, we inherited a situation where there had been an upward adjustment in terms of the duration of secondary school from 3 years to 4 years without any corresponding plans to open up infrastructure or develop additional infrastructure. We've done that through an emergency program. At the tertiary level, currently we boast 2 modern universities, which was actually a manifesto promise. If you come to the area of health, agri, security, and what have you, we have a fantastic story to tell.
So these are stories, these are messages
absolutely
you're taking out to
we're
the
taking
electorate.
Because
what else have you been telling them? I'm asking this in the back of the fact that you haven't yet launched your manifesto. So as you go out, what is the strategy you have in mind, and what are you telling them apart from what you just told?
And like I told you, I mean, whatever strategy we have would be underpinned by our ability to be able to assure the Ghanaian electorate that we have done ABCD with the mandate they give us, and on the basis of that, we are going to be able to carry the agenda going forward. Indeed, it evolves from the campaign slogan that we've adopted, advancing the Better Ghana agenda, working for you. We've worked on the money that people give us, and so they should look forward to seeing us do more. When the manifesto is launched, of course, we are then able to put these.
So under the circumstances, you think you're doing pretty well.
Absolutely, we are
with
doing
your campaign
we are
so
doing
far,
very well,
and you're
especially the
confident your message
Absolutely.
is sinking in.
Absolutely.
Let me now come to PNC, Ms. Amona. How is your campaign panning out so far?
Well, we yet to launch our party manifesto. We yet to outdoor our running mate. We also to launch our national campaign. Indeed, all three were planned to have taken place on the 29th of this month. Discussing with my flag bearer and also with the two MPs from the Sisala area where the campaign was to be launched, it appears that the rains are not permitting us to be able to do so. So tomorrow, for instance, we'll be having a very crucial meeting to determine whether we should still do it, given that I returned from the Upper West yesterday, and I was in that particular area. The van that I used to travel that road from Golu to Tumu and then to Wa, clearly, but for that van, we wouldn't have been able to cross the water. And indeed, when we got there in the night, we realized that almost the entire bonnet was submerged in water. So you do not want to risk people through that. And so we are considering whether we have to relocate the Congress, the launch of our campaign and everything to another place, or we want to shift it by a week in the hope that it will. Now, we want to do this for significant reasons. You realize that in the Sisala area...
But you do have 80 days to elections.
We've been campaigning.
Are you hitting the ground?
We have been
campaigning.
Campaigns. The flag bearer has been going around. The national chairman has taken onto himself some campaigns in some regions. I've been in the Upper West region, and it's not just West Central, moving and cutting across. And many of our people are also on the ground. Of course, we have parliamentary candidates, what I call parliamentary candidates adopted, not confirmed by the Electoral Commission, that are also in their individual way working hard to ensure that they are able to popularize the party and the message that we have.
What message do you have? What message have you been sending
out? The flag bearer set the tone when he had the evening encounter with the IEA, and at that place he spoke extensively about peace in this election and saying that those who are desperate for political power must also be desperate for the peace of this nation, because without the peace, political power is empty. The flag bearer talked about redirecting the energies of the young people for economic and social emancipation, and he thinks that our economy is in disarray and therefore it needs to be retooled so that we'll be able to bring forth what our nation desires. Clearly, no one will tell you that there is massive unemployment in our system, particularly so when, as a deliberate policy, we have set up a diversity implementation committee that is selling off state assets, state enterprises, and what have you. Deliberately, we want to auction what we own to foreign interests. And therefore, by that action, you realize that most people, industries are collapsing. Clearly, there is no manufacturing
so really,
base.
I mean, let me
so
just
we're
get
talking
it clear,
clearly
like,
about retooling and ensuring that we are able to get employment for our people. And to get employment, we need to do basic things. Look, talk about industrialization, expand the manufacturing base, and indeed broaden the horizon
and
within that.
These will all be encapsulated in your manifesto.
It is
when
there.
It is launched.
It is there. It is just to outdoor it publicly
and
for the
people
country.
Listening to you?
Well, you can't say that people have not been listening to us. Even political parties have listened to the message of the PNC over time. Why, it is the PNC that talked about national health insurance when others thought that cash and carry was the way out. And today, national health insurance has become a panacea to our health problems in our nation. It is the PNC that talked about Ghana Education Trust when others were thinking about cost sharing. Today, Ghana Education Trust has become a panacea, and indeed it has become a substitute to budgetary allocations to the Ministry of Education instead of a complement. It is the PNC that talked about the Ministry for Women and Children Affairs. Today, it has found manifestation in government.
So you're
confident
your message is
that
going
talked about
down.
School feeding program when others thought that it was not possible today. It is expressing itself in the enrollments that we have. So our message has been accepted not only by political parties, by the generality of our society. We think there are many more policies that we turn out. This time around, we're saying that don't just take the message, take the messenger along.
Okay. Mr. Confran,
Stephen,
how is your party's campaign going so far?
The campaign is going very well. I mean, we've adopted a particular timeline for this campaign, this particular year. And I think it's going very well to our timeline. We were the first to launch our manifesto back in June. And so far, we believe that the message, indeed, other political parties have taken some of our message. They've taken hook, line, and sinker. You know, we copied word for word without even acknowledging.
Which particular
well,
example?
I'll give you simple little examples. You know, apart from the fact that when it comes to education, nobody has anything to teach the CPP about free education. But you know, when you even go as far as taking a whole paragraph on giving 1 egg a day to our school feeding program, and you don't acknowledge that you're taking word for word. I mean, what is the chances of two political parties offering the same paragraph in a manifesto? But let's move beyond that. We were the first to launch our manifesto, first at the IEA, and I think Dr. Sakara inspired the whole nation. Nobody could say that this is not a man who can be president. Nobody could say that this is not a man who is full of ideas. And since then, we've decided that we'll take that message, his message of inspiration, the message that Ghana needs to work for every Ghanaian, the message that Ghana certainly is not working. You know, yes, we are making some strides, but where we are, how many Ghanaians can put their hand on their heart and say that every single sector is working for me as a Ghanaian, that Ghana as a nation is working for Ghanaians? You know, so he's traveled the country. I mean, he's been, in the last week, he's been in the Volta region. He's been in Pandai, Willensi, Bimbela, Salaga. He's been to Tamale, Bolga. He's due in Navrongo. He'll be in Tumu. He's going to Wa, Damongo, Kintampo, Techiman. His schedule is clear, what he needs to do, and he's taking it to communities. He's preaching that message to them. But he's not alone in this. Various organizers are traveling with him. Various leading members are traveling with him. In the south, our chair and leader, Honorable Sami Nkrumah, has also been on the campaign trail. This weekend, we've been in Tama East, we've been in Okakwe South, and frankly, what the chair saw, she was truly shocked. And talking to reporters afterwards, she said, is this the living conditions of the Tema that we, the CDP, gave to this country? We went to Site 1, we went to Site 20. These are temporary sites that the CDP government used to build communities 1 to 10. They are meant to be temporary sites. So what has happened for the last 40, 50 years for those who have sought to come and take the country forward? When we hear that people want to build on the foundation of the Osajifo, of Nkrumah, well, how long are we going to take before we build on the foundation? Temporary sites in Tema are now permanent sites. They become slums, effectively, when gutters are running in front of people's windows at the back streets of people's houses, and children are playing in the dark alleys of these communities with no air. And we are shocked as a party that the foundation that we built, this is testament to the fact that subsequent governments are not able to build on that foundation. They are not able to take the country forward, because these are the areas that they need to prove to us.
So you're promising you take the country forward from these
We are
lapses.
saying that the country is not working. You know, and when you go to Site 1, you go to Site 20, temporary sites built 40 years ago. Any meaningful government seeking to take the country forward in development will transform these temporary sites into permanent, reasonable housing for ordinary people.
There are those who say the CPP has not been in power for God knows how long. So some of your hold on things dating back to the First Republic are realistic.
Well, I think that the fact that we have able to shape the agenda in this country, I mean, social housing has not been provided in this country.
Are you bringing First Republic politics into 20th century?
First Republic.
How different would your policies be now than they were 40 or so years ago?
The policies do not need to be any different, because even today, when you study all the manifestos, and when NDC have launched their manifesto, you will see they'll be promising the same sort of policies that we've been seeking to do all these years. Social housing, as I've said, has not been provided in this country since the 70s. Now every party is talking about providing social housing. Free education. The people who were bombing us for free education are now talking about providing free education. So, are we moving away from?
They're not talking about free education.
They're talking about free senior high, yes. But are we moving away from the policies, or are we seeking to entrench? We've gone around in circles, and frankly, the CDP, the party which is the social conscience of this nation, has shifted the politics of our country to our agenda. If people are seeking to provide all these things, somebody's talking about industrialization. Almost every party is talking about adding value. That means that everything that we sought to do, everything that we'd almost achieved, those who've come and collapsed our manufacturing sector.
40 years on have not been done. That's your
40 years
your
on, they are
assessment.
coming back to say they want to industrialize. You've collapsed our industries. You've collapsed manufacturing from contributing double digits to GDP to single digit 3% to GDP, and you're telling the country you now want to industrialize. Who should believe you when you were part and parcel of, as Bernard was saying, selling off, closing factories, collapsing manufacturing, collapsing industrialization in this country? How do you now come back and say you want to add value? We
Felix,
were adding value.
Let's move to specific issues which the various parties are taking to the people, and whether they're setting them up in deliverable measures in order to let the electorate understand that, yes, we can achieve this and this, and setting timelines to it. Let's start with education. I mean, that's what just comes to my mind. What is the NDC saying to the people of Ghana about their plans for education? I've heard Samuel Kujeto Ablakwa mention the expression progressively free. Your party is working towards making education progressively free as captured in the Constitution, right?
Exactly. I mean, and you alluded to the fact that this is a philosophy that is captured within the national constitution. But I think that we are all realistic enough to appreciate that the resources to ensure that overnight we have free, compulsory, universal education at all levels is not readily available. In view of that, and in view of the fact that there are competing demands by other sectors, any plan that aims at ensuring that as many, or if not all, of our citizens have access to quality education must put in place measures to ensure that it is possible at the end of the day. You see, it is not enough to go about talking about free secondary school education or free university education.
The NPP has been on
again, and that is why
flagship program,
and that is
free
why
high school
that is why the
education.
majority of Ghanaians have been skeptical about the promise that they've made.
Are you skeptical?
You see, I think that the NPP is not being realistic in this whole enterprise. It is not that anybody is against free senior school education. Indeed, Bernard Bonham retorted when Mr. Konfra was making his submission that the NPP wants to provide free secondary school education when basic education has not been made free. I mean, how can anybody put up a 3-story building, for instance, and then start with the second floor without thinking about digging a foundation? That building would collapse. What you need to do is to consolidate whatever gains that have been made at the basic level to ensure that at least every Ghanaian child has free, compulsory, universal, quality basic education. Then progressively you can build on onto the secondary school
So
level.
let me get you. Let me just cut you there and get in. The NPP has said and have provided figures to back their flagship policy that they can, when in government, provide absolutely free education and also ensure that teachers' incomes are improved and quality of teaching. They've said all sorts of things. What are you going to do for education, rather than telling me that you disagree with the NPP?
Yeah, I mean, their take on teachers' motivation, for instance, is a bit redundant. Teachers are enjoying sometimes, in some instances, 300% increases in their wages. So I don't know what exactly the NPP is talking about. They failed to do that in the 8 years that they were in power. But our argument has been, and indeed our proposal has been, that we are going to ensure that we expand access and improve upon the quality of our education. That, for me, and that for the NDC should be the priority.
And this is what you're telling the electorate.
Indeed, we have a track record over the last 3 years of having done that. I spoke to you during the first set of questions that we have removed schools under trees, 1,700 of them. That has ensured that close to 200,000 basic school pupils who were sitting under trees can now sit in modern classroom blocks and compete with their counterparts in any other part of this country. That is a phenomenal achievement that is ensuring that we are enhancing the quality. Beyond that,
and you think that is more realistic than saying that you will make it entirely free of all costs?
It is more realistic. It speaks to the challenge that we have, which is a lack of access. And it also takes into account the fact that you need to be consistent.
But are you being fair to the NPP for one acknowledging that free education is very possible and yet going ahead to say, no, you can't do it?
No, you see, Stephen, if today a party came and said we're going to provide free water, free electricity, free transport, free everything, I'm sure Ghanaians will be happy about that. But the next question that will be asked is that how are you going to do all these things? The NPP has failed to demonstrate that they even appreciate the gravity of the problem, that they even have what it takes to do the necessary calculations in terms of figures. They are banding some figures about, they say it will cost what, 78 million Ghana cedis for the first academic year, when the reality on the ground is that it will cost 1.2 billion Ghana cedis to implement that policy on an annual basis. That is assuming that enrollment remains
Is your
static.
party not wasting too much
We are not
time
wasting. I'm telling you what we
engaging
do.
the
Listen,
NPP
I'm
on the
telling you-
promise they have made,
Yeah, but-
rather
but-
than
but-
telling us
but
what
you see,
you want
it is also the
to do
business,
for us
it is
when
also
it
the
comes to
business,
education?
It is also the business of political parties to help shape
The discourse, and
help
understanding of the
make,
issues.
help make the electorate have the capacity to make informed choices on election day. And that is why when the NPP put up something that clearly is unrealistic and not attainable within the time frame that they've set for themselves, it is our responsibility to put that out. Having done that, we have said that we are going to ensure that, for instance, at the secondary school level, we provide 250 community day secondary schools over the next 3 years. That is going to ensure that another close to 300 senior secondary schools or JHS graduates who have the requisite qualification to go to senior secondary school have access to attend senior secondary schools.
And this you're telling the people on the
Absolutely,
ground
we are telling
when you
them
go
on
on
the
your
ground when you go there.
campaigns.
And the
Are they
president-
understanding you?
Absolutely, and you see, Ghanaians are very discerning people. They know that they need to be wary of politicians who come making unrealistic
Of course,
promises and
including
have
yourselves.
but of course, we have by and large kept the promises that we've made. Of course, no political party in history has been able to fulfill every promise that is made. But by and large, we can confidently say that close to 70% of our promises have been fulfilled. So the electorate is buying this, and they know that based on our track record, indeed, between 1992 to the year 2000, we constructed 250 community day secondary schools, and that is what added to the number that the Osadefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah government bequeathed to this country. The NPP, over the 8 years that they were in power, was only able to put up 19 secondary schools. So it is a party that has a poor track record. We have a vastly superior record. And so when we tell the people of Ghana that we are going to be able to do A, B, C, D, they have what it takes to believe us, because they can see that we have done it before. Again, there are other areas that our manifesto will touch upon. But consistently, we have made the point that we are in government. We know exactly what the limitations are. We know exactly what the resource envelope is. And so when we are making any promise, we are mindful of the reality on the ground. And the reality is that we are a developing country that is making giant strides in terms of the economy and all other sectors. Nonetheless, every promise we make must be within the context of this reality.
You agree that this free education thing is possible, but
No,
we must prioritize.
It's a modern space program possible in Ghana. You think that next year we can have a modern space program? No. Even though it may be something that some may argue is desirable.
It's feasible.
Absolutely, it is feasible, but it becomes possible when you have the resources readily available to
Mr.
implement that kind of
do we
policy.
have the resources available to make education progressively free, even up to senior high school level?
Certainly, I think that we should not allow the NPP and the NDC to turn this argument into one of access or one of free senior high school.
Is it not?
Well, the UN envoy on education, global education, Gordon Brown, has said recently that global education in many countries, including developing countries, is not just about access. It's about access, it's about quality, it's about finance. And so we need to look at all these things. And when we look at our own educational sector, we need to look at it holistically to see what the problems are. The infrastructure is lacking. 50% don't have toilets, 40-something% don't have water. The UN again tells us that our schools in this country are not child-friendly, they are not safe for children. All of these issues need to be tackled. We know that only a quarter.
And how is your party going to tackle that
we've said
when
that
giving the opportunity to form the next government?
We certainly, as I've said, when it comes to basic compulsory free education, it's a matter of course for us. We've said that it's in our manifesto. We've said we will expand the basic education so that it includes senior high school. We've said it. We've said that we will implement a free and then compulsory
that comes with
education.
cost implications.
Yeah, it does come with cost implications.
I can't let you say that if you are not going to provide us with how you will fund that, where the money will come from.
We've said, for example, that
what timelines you set to achieve that.
We've said that we will set up an accelerated educational sector investment program. That means that we need to have the program that tackles all of these issues: infrastructure, falling standards, the fact that 50% are failing, the fact that only 25% of our children get secondary school education. All of these things need a proper accelerated program. And we will need, if we borrow into that program, we will need to do everything that's necessary to implement it. We've said, for example, in our manifesto, that we know that in the educational sector alone, 25% of salary expenditure does not reach the intended beneficiaries. 50% of non-salary expenditure does not reach the intended beneficiaries. The NDC government, this budget, this year, targeted to save 1 billion from the public sector, wastage and other means. They've embarked on a biometric process to make sure that they can save that money. The finance ministers had to go to Parliament not long ago to say, well, we haven't been able to. But we know, we are saying that we can achieve 3 times that. We can achieve 3 billion worth of savings.
Mr. Mona, where does your party stand
we know that
with
we can
this
do it.
education? Where does your party stand on the education promise? This is only one of the things that I'm bringing up. But how is your party psyched to solve the educational problems of this country?
We are amazed that NDC MPP that have had the opportunity to lead this country 8 years, 4 years now.
8 years apiece.
Yeah, 8 years,
And
now 4
years.
years. And now the people that are telling us what they have not been able to do, and instead of telling us and owning up to their failure, they are telling the whole nation that this is what we intend to do and this is what we have not been able to do. It is strange.
Is it not okay to say, hey, we promised you this, we couldn't achieve on that, we achieved on this? I mean, I don't think it's fair for you to say that, calculating your losses and making provisions for the future is bad.
Our entire educational system needs a retooling. No doubt about it.
That's what your party is going to
provide.
We
need retooling.
If you come into
the
power.
Current way that we are managing things.
You see, you're using general rhetoric, which I just cannot understand.
Because you're not permitting me to even make the case.
Right.
Because you've not even permitted me to make the case, so you conclude the way you have done.
Okay.
It took Cuba 4 years to eradicate illiteracy in the entire of Cuba. With the whole world against Cuba, they were able to eliminate illiteracy. The whole world is not against us. So what is it that is making it impossible for us to eradicate illiteracy in this nation? Is it because some political parties are benefiting from the large numbers of illiteracy that we have? Why? How difficult is this? The Constitution of Ghana permits that we should have free, compulsory, universal basic education. Secondary school must be made free. Tertiary institutions must enjoy progressive free education. If you go to Article 38 of the 1992 Constitution, it's explicit there that, look, 10 years after the coming into force of our Constitution, in fact, we should have been enjoying free education. 2 years after Parliament should take the necessary steps to ensure that the processes and policies are laid for us to enjoy free education. What is the Parliament of Ghana doing?
So your party is going to put all of us back on track to the Constitution.
Why? Take the educational structure, and we have constantly said that, look, you can't have a paramedic form of education and think that we are going anywhere. At the basic level, you have over 52,000, about our 560 basic schools. You come to secondary level and you have less than 100. You go upper and it's even smaller. What it simply means is that by our own deliberate act, we are emasculating a chunk of our people from accessing higher education.
Only 25%.
Accessing higher education. And why? What is the use of a JSS certificate? What will it employ? What will you use it for? You have people whose education comes to an end, kaput, at JSS level because they do not have opportunity to enter secondary school.
And your party will fix that. I'll take a break.
It is absolutely
I'll take a short break
that
and we'll return.
The parties that have failed us on this platform are the same people that today are telling us that they are going to give a jumpstart free senior high school.
This is PM Express, and we're talking about the 2012 campaign so far. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll hear more from these representatives of political parties. Stay with us.